Welcome back to From Kitchen to C-Suite, the podcast where we bridge the gap between the heat of the line and the high-stakes world of business strategy and innovation. I'm your host, Don, and today we are diving deep into a movement that is literally hitting home, challenging the fundamental structure of the entire food service industry. For decades, the path to culinary entrepreneurship has followed a rigid, almost punitive script. You had to locate and secure a brick-and-mortar storefront, navigate the bureaucracy to sign a soul-crushing commercial lease, often requiring hundreds of thousands in capital. And then, after all that, you had to pray the health inspector approved of your expensive new tile grout and ventilation system. That traditional model functioned as a massive economic barrier to entry, effectively gatekeeping the industry. But in California, the script is being shredded and rewritten. We're talking about MEHKOs, Microenterprise Home Kitchen Operations. California, specifically starting with the landmark 2019 adoption of the California Homemade Food Act, AB 626, is now leading a nationwide charge to legalize and regulate professional-grade cooking straight out of residential kitchens. This isn't just baking cookies. This is serving full, hot meals to the public. For many, especially underrepresented founders, it's being hailed as the ultimate, quote, culinary revolution, a powerful mechanism to democratize the food industry, empower immigrant entrepreneurs, and lower the startup capital barrier to near zero. A kitchen, a stove, and a license are all you need to start generating revenue. But for others, particularly the established restaurant lobby and commercial kitchen operators, it looks exactly like a recipe for disaster. Critics are sounding a loud alarm on multiple fronts. The genuine risks to food safety protocols when regulatory oversight is decentralized across thousands of homes. The potential for neighborhood zoning nightmares as traffic, parking, and commercial odors invade residential areas. And, most significantly, the existential threat to traditional, licensed restaurants already struggling with razor-thin margins and high labor costs. They argue that MEHKOs create an unfair competitive advantage by operating without the overhead of commercial rent, insurance, and compliance standards. Today we're unpacking the hustle behind the home kitchen movement. Is this truly the future of the gig economy, a model that provides flexible income and diverse dining options? Or are we inadvertently inviting a massive regulatory and public health headache directly into our living rooms? We're going beyond the hype to look critically at the data, the deliciousness, and the complex drama surrounding this policy shift. Grab your apron and your ledger. We're going inside California's home kitchens to understand the economics, the opportunity, and the opposition. Let's get to work. Segment Breakdown: The Future of Food Entrepreneurship. The Pro-Business Lens: Lean Startups for the Culinary World. This segment will analyze how home kitchens function as true lean startups or incubators for underrepresented founders, immigrants, single parents, and those with limited access to capital. We will look at data on how MEHKOs enable quick market validation and customer feedback loops without the crushing debt of commercial infrastructure. The risk assessment, enforcement, insurance, and the restaurant lobby's pushback. We'll delve into why the California Restaurant Association and other commercial operators are pushing back so hard. This includes a deep dive into the reality of health code enforcement in a residential setting, the current liability issues for home-based businesses, and the challenge of scaling sanitation compliance across thousands of individual locations. The regulatory and zoning battlefield: a look at the neighborhood impact. What is being done to address concerns over noise, traffic, and residential quality of life? We'll examine the specific licensing tiers and revenue caps that are currently in place to keep the, quote, micro-enterprise truly micro. The bottom line: can a home cook truly scale from a stovetop to a C-suite? Finally, we explore the potential for these operations to graduate into successful, full-scale commercial businesses. Is this a sustainable parallel market or simply a necessary first rung on the traditional ladder of culinary success? California, a state renowned for innovation, entrepreneurial dynamism, and cultural trendsetting, is fundamentally reshaping its culinary sector. The implementation of the Microenterprise Home Kitchen Operations (MEHKO) program, legally established in 2018 through Assembly Bill 626 and its subsequent legislative amendments, represents a significant departure from conventional food service models. This pioneering legislation legally authorizes individuals to prepare and sell food directly from their private residential kitchens, a concept that has generated both considerable enthusiasm and intense regulatory debate. The central question is whether this initiative, designed to democratize the food industry and foster grassroots entrepreneurship, heralds a national culinary transformation, or constitutes a regulatory risk that could compromise consumer safety and destabilize the established food service sector. A budding trend beyond the Golden State? The national implications: California's MEHKO program, often colloquially termed homemade DoorDash, or a more formalized cottage food operation, has garnered the serious attention of policymakers and food entrepreneurs well beyond the state's boundaries. The fundamental appeal of this model lies in the dramatic reduction of the financial and bureaucratic barriers to entry for aspiring chefs and culinary specialists. Traditional restaurant startups necessitate substantial capital investment, complex permitting procedures, and adherence to often prohibitive commercial kitchen requirements. MEHKOs offer an agile, low-overhead alternative, allowing the operator's culinary skill and specialized menu offerings to be the principal focus. The economic and social benefits of this model are demonstrably tangible. Economic empowerment. It furnishes a crucial, supplementary income stream, particularly for individuals in marginalized communities, single parents, or those with mobility limitations. Support for local economies. Revenue generated by MEHKOs tends to circulate directly back into local communities and support local ingredient sourcing. Culinary diversity. Consumers gain access to an extensive array of unique, often ethnically diverse and culturally specific dishes that are infrequently available in mass-market dining establishments. Momentum for similar legislation is accumulating across the United States. States including Wyoming, Utah, New Jersey, and others have proceeded to implement or expand comparable cottage food and microenterprise regulations. This trend was substantially accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic, which necessitated alternative, contactless income streams and safe, convenient meal solutions. As California, with its extensive market and complex regulatory environment, continues to refine its MEHKO framework, it is establishing a regulatory blueprint that analysts anticipate will be widely adopted by other states. This shift holds the potential to fundamentally restructure how local food is produced, distributed, and consumed nationwide, recognizing the capacity for both entrepreneurial expansion and enhanced community engagement. Consumer safety, a top priority or a cause for concern. The most critical and vigorously debated aspect of the MEHKO program concerns the assurance of consumer safety. Traditional food service establishments, encompassing restaurants, caterers, and food trucks, operate under a comprehensive and highly regulated system featuring routine health inspections, stringent permitting, and exhaustive food handling protocols. While MEHKOs are subject to regulation, the model for oversight is distinctly different, attracting significant scrutiny. California's strategy for mitigating health risks in non-commercial settings is a multifaceted framework that seeks to balance proactive education with responsive enforcement. Fundamentally, the system relies upon permitting and registration, requiring home cooks to formally enroll with their local county health department to ensure official oversight and adherence to defined operating guidelines. To maintain a high standard of professional expertise, all microenterprise home kitchen operation MEHKO operators are legally mandated to obtain a Food Safety Manager certification, which provides standardized knowledge in critical areas such as temperature control and cross-contamination prevention. The regulatory model also employs a more flexible approach to oversight compared to traditional commercial kitchens. In lieu of routine unannounced visits, the state utilizes complaint-based inspections. This methodology concentrates resources on identified hazards and minimizes the administrative burden placed upon small-scale operators. To further mitigate public health risks, the program enforces a limited scope of operation, imposing strict limitations on annual sales, the maximum number of meals served, and the use of high-risk ingredients such as raw seafood. Finally, the principle of transparency and consumer choice mandates that operators clearly disclose their home kitchen status in all promotional materials, thereby empowering consumers to make well-informed purchasing decisions. Despite these robust mechanisms, critics articulate valid concerns. The absence of proactive, routine inspections is perceived by some as a regulatory vulnerability, potentially allowing minor but persistent food safety violations to remain undetected until a consumer reports an illness. The inherent nature of a home environment, where pets, children, and non-commercial activities naturally occur, raises legitimate worries regarding the potential for cross-contamination. Conversely, proponents assert that home cooks frequently exhibit meticulous hygiene, recognizing their personal liability, and that the sheer difference in operational scale renders a large-scale commercial kitchen outbreak a far greater public health concern than a localized MEHKO incident. Impact on restaurants and food trucks, competition or collaboration. The proliferation of MEHKOs has understandably generated apprehension within the established food service industry. Traditional restaurants and licensed food trucks operate with significant overhead expenses, costly commercial leases, high labor costs, specialized equipment, rigorous insurance requirements, and mandatory adherence to comprehensive permitting and regulatory frameworks. The concern is that MEHKOs, benefiting from minimal overhead, utilizing their existing home kitchen, and a less burdensome regulatory environment, could unfairly undercut market prices and divert a substantial portion of the existing customer base. However, a more detailed analysis suggests the relationship is more nuanced, potentially resulting in market segmentation rather than direct conflict. Niche market service. MEHKOs often achieve success by catering to highly specific or niche markets. A particular regional cuisine, specialized dietary needs, e.g., specific allergens, vegan offerings, or unique fusion concepts. This specialization frequently positions them outside the direct competitive sphere of many traditional restaurants. Incubator for talent. Many successful MEHKOs function as valuable culinary incubators. They permit aspiring entrepreneurs to test concepts, establish a brand identity, and cultivate a loyal clientele with minimal initial financial exposure. A proven MEHKO can subsequently transition into a successful brick-and-mortar restaurant or food truck, ultimately bolstering the traditional sector. Market diversification. Rather than merely redistributing existing consumer food expenditure, MEHKOs appear to expand the overall culinary market. They provide consumers with additional reasons to allocate funds toward prepared food, whether driven by convenience, novelty, or a desire for specialized items. Driver of innovation. Healthy market competition fosters innovation. The pressure exerted by agile MEHKOs may encourage traditional restaurants to further differentiate their offerings, enhance the dining experience, or explore new operational paradigms, ultimately benefiting the consumer through improved quality and greater variety. While a degree of competitive disruption is unavoidable, the consensus among industry analysts is that MEHKOs will primarily complement the established sector. The inherent advantages of restaurants and food trucks, their suitability for large gatherings, guaranteed ambiance, and extensive menu selection, will ensure their enduring appeal to the majority of the customer base. The road ahead. Monitoring, data, and adaptability. The California MEHKO program represents a significant, bold experiment in the democratization of the food industry. Its long-term viability and success are contingent upon continuous improvement, transparency, and a steadfast commitment to data-driven policy formulation. Key factors critical to the program's evolution include continuous regulatory monitoring. Local health departments must systematically collect and analyze data pertaining to consumer complaints, inspections, and foodborne illness incidents to ensure the complaint-based inspection model remains effective and safe. Fostering collaboration. The long-term stability of the food ecosystem necessitates the cultivation of a collaborative environment. This involves bridging the communication divide between MEHKO operators and traditional establishment owners, perhaps through shared training initiatives, industry events, or local food business alliances. Adaptability. As both technology and consumer preferences evolve, the underlying legislation must maintain sufficient flexibility to adapt. This may involve adjusting sales maximums, refining menu restrictions, or creating tiered permitting structures based on operational volume or complexity. The Golden State's pioneering initiative has undeniably altered the culinary landscape. The rest of the nation is now observing closely to determine if this homegrown microenterprise revolution will solidify its standing as a safe, sustainable, and economically vital component of the modern American food system. This concludes our in-depth examination of a highly contentious and evolving topic. We have thoroughly addressed the complex, often contradictory landscape of the formalized home food business. Whether one views microenterprise home kitchen operations, MEHKOs, as the essential mechanism for democratizing the food industry, a strategy to circumvent prohibitive startup capital and systemic institutional barriers, or approaches them with caution as a regulatory challenge requiring stringent oversight, a singular conclusion has been established. The historical chasm separating the modest home cook from the C-suite executive overseeing a multinational food enterprise is demonstrably narrowing. The California Pilot Program. Presently, the state of California serves as a significant, dynamic socioeconomic laboratory for entrepreneurial models. This is not a limited trial. It constitutes a full-scale proving ground for a potentially transformative business architecture. The prospect of success is considerable. The subsequent truly impactful and disruptive food conglomerate, one positioned to fundamentally reconfigure our supply chain and dining culture, could realistically originate within a small residential kitchen in Riverside County, a suburban garage facility in the Bay Area, or a modest apartment in San Diego, thereby bypassing the traditional pathways of venture capital and specialized tech incubation. This movement is fundamentally predicated upon accessible culinary innovation. Conversely, the scenario of failure carries substantial weight and potentially critical repercussions, frequently generating sensationalist recipe for disaster media coverage. The risk extends beyond the cessation of a single business operation. It encompasses the danger of regulatory retraction, widespread public health incidents, and the potential destabilization of the entire MEHKO initiative if comprehensive safety protocols are not meticulously enforced. Nevertheless, as of today, legislative obstacles have been largely surmounted. Operational permits are actively being processed. Commercial-grade culinary equipment is being activated, and the ambient environment clearly indicates more than mere meal preparation. It signifies the activation of significant economic opportunity. We extend our sincere gratitude to our distinguished expert panelists for enabling us to effectively analyze this volatile subject matter with clarity. To our dedicated audience, we encourage you, during your next dining decision, to investigate hyperlocal options, review local listings, and actively engage with your community. You may very well be placing an order that supports the next industry leader prior to their establishment of corporate offices or flagship restaurant venues. I am Don, and this has been From Kitchen to C-Suite, your essential compendium for navigating the future of food entrepreneurship. We will reconvene next week for additional expert analysis. Until then, maintain the vigor of your professional ambition and, critically, ensure all operations rigorously adhere to established regulatory standards. This installment provided a comprehensive, objective, and tripartite analysis of the rapidly accelerating mandate to formally legalize and regulate home kitchen operations, MEHKOs. The optimist perspective, economic democratization within the food sector proponents, assert that this model substantially mitigates the burdensome startup and overhead expenditures associated with commercial leasing, thereby facilitating market entry for passionate, undercapitalized, or marginalized culinary professionals, notably women, immigrants, and individuals of color, without the prerequisite for traditional capital acquisition. This mechanism promotes highly localized community dining, cultivates distinct culinary niches, and contributes to the development of food systems that exhibit greater resilience and reduce dependence on large-scale corporate entities. It represents a tangible pathway to genuine economic empowerment. The skeptics' reservations, public health, zoning compliance, and societal impact. The primary challenges center on the maintenance of rigorous public health standards and effective food safety surveillance when operations are conducted within private, residential settings, rather than within certified commercial facilities. Beyond safety, there are valid concerns regarding the adverse impact on residential zoning ordinances, the introduction of excessive commercial vehicle traffic, and the potential disruption of neighborhood serenity. Complex issues that necessitate nuanced management by local governing bodies. The reality assessment, viability conditioned on operational excellence, the sustained success and ultimate long-term feasibility of the MEHKO framework are not guaranteed. It fundamentally relies on two decisive variables: the broad, efficacious, and efficient adoption and execution by county-level governmental administrations, and the absolute capability of home-based operators to internalize and maintain stringent self-regulation and operational transparency. The continuation of this model is predicated upon its practitioners, consistently demonstrating that this decentralized food system is not only safe, but also economically sustainable. The ambitious endeavor of evolving a concept conceived in a home kitchen into a successful C-suite entity requires more than isolated effort. It is sustained by entrepreneurial ingenuity, unwavering commitment, and access to the appropriate strategic ecosystem. This podcast is privileged to receive support from our sponsors, who are proactively dedicated to equipping professionals across the entire culinary and hospitality sectors with critical knowledge and essential resources. HRB Universal. We extend a distinguished and profoundly appreciative commendation to HRB Universal for their resolute commitment to providing comprehensive educational programming, industry-recognized certifications, and for advocating for the highest standards of professional excellence in food safety and hospitality management. Their dedication is fundamental to the necessary self-regulation required for MEHKO success. The Plate and Pour Collective Equity Partner Program. This pioneering initiative is structured to cultivate shared success and equitable expansion within the highly competitive food and beverage marketplace. They actively assist promising entrepreneurs in building a more inclusive, financially robust, and flourishing future by supplying capital, professional guidance, and a framework for collective achievement. We strongly encourage you to utilize the invaluable resources and professional assistance provided by our sponsors. For extensive information on connecting with HRB Universal and learning more about the Plate and Pour Collective Equity Partner Program, please consult our dedicated online portal at hrbuni.com, or, for immediate access, search HRB Universal. Please join us for our subsequent compelling episode of From Kitchen to C-Suite, where we will persist in exploring captivating, high-impact topics specifically curated to advance your professional career and entrepreneurial trajectory. Subscribe, access, and view current and past episodes across all major podcast distribution channels. Official platform update. We are now offering live and on-demand streaming of our episodes on YouTube and are conveniently accessible via your home entertainment systems on Roku and Fire TV as a component of the specialized HRB TV network. Until our next broadcast, maintain your commitment to innovation, adhere to ethical business practices, and consistently strive for the highest levels of achievement.